Sunday, November 2, 2014, a cold, dark night in Philadelphia. For 22-year-old Karlesha Freeland Gaither, a nursing assistant, it was supposed to be a routine walk home. She'd just missed her bus, a minor inconvenience that would soon become the first step in a terrifying ordeal. We often watch true crime and think about what we would do in that situation. Karlesha didn't just think, she acted, and in doing so, she would prove that lessons from the screen could save a life. The surveillance footage is chilling. It shows a man, later identified as Delvin Barnes, trailing her for blocks. He eventually confronts her. What happens next is a violent struggle, and Karlesha is dragged, kicking and screaming, into a dark vehicle. But this is where her incredible story truly begins. In that desperate moment, as she was being forced into the car, Karlesha did something that would be the first of many brilliant moves. She intentionally dropped her cell phone. Now, this may seem like a small detail, but it was a calculated risk. It wasn't just a dropped item, it was a beacon, a digital breadcrumb for investigators. It gave police a crucial starting point. The investigation kicked off immediately. The witness, a man named Dwayne Fletcher, called 911, giving a detailed description of the abduction. This was a critical first step. When police arrived, they had the surveillance footage and they had her phone. This gave them her identity, and most importantly, it showed the world the face of her kidnapper. The FBI was brought in, and the hunt for Karlesha and her abductor began. Now, let us talk about what was happening inside that cold, dark car. For Karlesha, every moment was a choice between panic and survival. She was alone with a violent man, but she never gave up. She didn't just accept her fate, she started leaving more clues. At one point, she was able to break the rear window of the car. She dropped her glasses outside, and then, when Barnes asked her to dispose of some trash, she again saw an opportunity. In that trash bag, she secretly placed her earring and pieces of the broken glass from the car window. She was turning her confinement into a continuous, active escape plan. But her actions weren't just physical. Karlesha also engaged in a psychological battle with her captor. Using the skills she had learned from working with high-risk patients, she started talking to him. She didn't just scream or plead, she tried to understand him. She learned his name, and she gathered information that would later prove invaluable. She was making him see her not just as a victim, but as a person. And this, she hoped, would buy her time. Meanwhile, the investigation was closing in. The FBI had discovered that Delvin Barnes had a history of violent crime. He was actually out on bail for a separate, unrelated kidnapping case. This detail is crucial. It meant that his car was already fitted with a GPS tracking device. Think about that for a second. The very technology meant to monitor him for his past crimes was now leading law enforcement directly to Karlesha. The GPS pinged his location in Jessup, Maryland. Federal agents moved in, surrounding the vehicle. Barnes was caught completely by surprise. As the agents descended, they found Karlesha alive and safe inside. The relief in that moment, for her and her family, must have been overwhelming. In the end, Delvin Barnes pleaded guilty to kidnapping. He was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. But the true end of this story isn't about him, it is about Karlesha. Her story is a powerful reminder that in the face of unimaginable terror, there is always hope. She is a testament to the power of resilience, quick thinking, and the simple, human desire to survive. Today, she shares her story, not just as a survivor, but as an inspiration. He walks into an airport clinic alone, a routine check before flying home. Minutes later, he will sprint out of that same building leaving his phone, his wallet, and his passport behind. Cameras catch him running through the terminal, across the parking lot, over a fence, and into the summer fields beyond. He doesn't look back. He never comes back. Beat. In July 2014, a young German tourist named Lars Mittank vanished at Bulgaria's Varna Airport in broad daylight. No ransom note. No confirmed sightings, just a trail of contradictions and a family caught between grief and hope. Low, tense pulse. What happened in the hours between a beach holiday and a runaway sprint into the unknown? Was someone really after him, or did something inside him fracture at 35,000 feet below the clouds he never reached? Title Sting. This is the story of Lars Mittank, the most watched disappearance on airport CCTV and the mystery that still haunts Europe's Black Sea coast. Today, we're going to walk through the known timeline, the conflicting details, and the major theories. We'll separate what is on record from what is rumor, and we'll ask a hard question: when you remove every convenient explanation, what remains? Beat. If you find value in careful, respectful storytelling about unresolved cases, consider staying to the end. And please be kind in the comments. Behind every mystery is a family listening. Lars Mittank was 28, he came from northern Germany. Friends describe him as easygoing, outdoorsy, a little quiet, someone who'd say yes to a last-minute trip if the company was good. No criminal history, no pattern of disappearing. He was close with his mother, close enough to text updates and ask advice when small things went wrong. It is important to begin here, with a person, not a puzzle, because the next 7 days would turn that person into 1,000 online theories. Early July, Bulgarian coast. Golden Sands, a resort zone north of Varna, popular with students and budget travelers. Cheap bars, crowded beaches, the sea glittering under afternoon heat. Lars arrives with friends. The plan is simple: swim, drink, sleep, repeat. For most of the trip, that is exactly what happens until a night out turns tense. Accounts differ on who said what first. There is talk of an argument, maybe football fan rivalry, maybe a misunderstanding. What is consistent is this: Lars sustains an injury reportedly to his ear and jaw, and the mood of the holiday shifts. Ear trauma can be trivial, or not. Barotrauma, the damage caused by pressure changes during flight, is a real risk for recent ear injuries. A doctor examines Lars. The advice: don't fly yet, rest. Medication: come back once the pressure risk eases. This is the fork in the road. His friends are scheduled to go home. He isn't. They head to the airport. He checks into a budget hotel in Varna for a night or two, close enough to return for a follow-up, cheap enough not to wreck the trip's budget. He tells his mother he'll manage, he'll come home soon. The next hours are where the story goes from inconvenient to alarming. Staff later report that Lars seemed uneasy. He changes rooms. He says he feels unsafe. He calls his mother more than once. On at least one call, he sounds frightened, saying he thinks he is being followed. He asks her to cancel his credit cards. If you're listening with a skeptic's ear, you should be. Fear can be rational or it can be a symptom. Acute stress, sleep deprivation, certain medications, or an underlying mental health episode, any of these can distort threats and patterns. But here is the tension: if he was only imagining danger, why do some pieces look so physical? Why leave valuables behind? Why run as if your life depends on it? Morning of departure, Lars heads to Varna Airport. Before he can check in, he visits the airport medical point. Standard procedure given last night's doctor note. What happens next is the axis of the entire case. The medical staff begin their check. Then, suddenly, Lars bolts. He leaves his backpack and crucial documents behind. He sprints out of the clinic, through the terminal doors, and across the concourse. Security cameras track him in a jagged, kinetic sequence: a young man in shorts, a yellow t-shirt, running flat out into the summer glare. He crosses the parking area. He climbs or vaults a fence. And then he is off the cameras, gone toward a stretch of scrub and fields that ripple away from the airport's edge. After that sprint, there are only unverified reports: a driver who thinks he saw someone on the roadside, a worker who remembers a stranger cutting through a field, none of it firmly attached to a time, a place, and a face linked by camera or police. It is very possible that the last proved image of Lars alive is the one you've already seen, that frame of him sprinting past the terminal windows. Police search the area, family and volunteers make appeals, flyers go up in multiple languages. The case reaches German and international media. Tips spike, trickle, then fall. Searches near airports are messy: noise, wind, shifting vegetation, pockets of dense brush that swallow footprints, heat that evaporates and trails and erases the soft evidence of an overnight stay. If someone decides to hide, or if someone is in distress and wanders, minutes become miles. Days pass, the story freezes, the family waits. With unresolved cases, rumors rush in to fill the vacuum. Some claim he was chased inside the airport, others claim there were shadowy figures or organized crime. Still others point to medical side effects, antibiotic interactions, head trauma, panic attacks blooming into a full-blown psychotic break. Responsible storytelling means we separate what is documented from what is convenient. We have CCTV of the run, we have testimony that he left belongings behind. We have his own words to his mother, that he felt threatened. Beyond that, we have Mabe's layers of speculation stacked on unconfirmed details. So let us deal with the big theories one by one. The first theory is brutal in its simplicity. Lars angered the wrong people. They followed him. He realized it. He ran. Supporters point to the initial altercation earlier in the trip. If the men involved were locals or connected to violent networks, perhaps a grudge was nursed. In this line of thinking, the airport clinic becomes a trap, a narrow room, few exits, vulnerable. If someone approached that door, running makes sense, but this theory has problems. Airports are heavily surveilled. If hostile pursuers were on the premises, investigators should have found more than rumor. And why would a sophisticated threat wait until he was in a public building? Why not approach him the night before at his budget hotel when he was exhausted and alone? The second theory is medical. Under stress, some people experience sudden, intense episodes, panic attacks, dissociation, psychosis. Ear trauma, pain, sleep loss, fear, and certain substances can catalyze this. This theory explains the contradictions, the calls to his mother, the anxiety at the hotel, the flight from the clinic without his passport or money. If your brain decides you're in mortal danger, the rational checklist phone, plans evaporates. You run, the counterpoint. If it were purely internal, why then, why not earlier? And where did he go after sprinting into the open, in broad daylight, with searches combing the area? Even in acute crisis, people leave traces, purchases, sightings, shelter. The almost total absence of credible follow-up data is hard to square. A narrower version of the medical theory points to medication. Certain antibiotics and painkillers have rare side effects that include agitation, anxiety, even hallucinations. Combine that with dehydration, heat, and a jolt of adrenaline, and you have a plausible recipe for panic. The caution here is correlation versus causation. Millions take these medications without incident, and even when side effects occur, they are typically transient and manageable. It is a tempting answer because it is tidy, but tidy isn't the same as true. The fourth theory is the least dramatic and, statistically, one of the most likely. Lars ran because he was afraid of someone or something, and then misadventure took over. He may have tried to cut across terrain he didn't know, seeking a hiding place. A fall, heat stroke, a body concealed by brush. Airports are oddly rural at the edges, pockets of unobserved land meant to buffer noise and risk. People do get lost in them. They do succumb to the elements. If a search misses by 50 meters, it can miss for years. But again, searches happened, multiple passes, dogs, drones. It is unusual for all sign to vanish. There is also the walkaway theory, the idea that Lars used the chaos to start a new life. Supporters note the timing, young adult. Possible stressors we don't know, an opportunity to disappear without paperwork. The problem, he left his money, his phone, his passport. Starting over requires resources, networks, or at least a plan. None appear in the record, and there are no verified sightings that fit a deliberate relaunch. Could someone survive off the grid from one midsummer morning onward? Possible, likely, not very. To me, the most revealing minute is the clinic minute. Imagine the room, fluorescent lights, the tug of antiseptic in the air, a professional asking questions about pressure and pain. And then something changes. What triggered the run? Was it a word, a phone call, a figure passing the door, or an internal switch fear metabolized into action? We can see inside his body, we can replay his perception, but we can say this: whatever he believed at that second, he believed it strongly enough to abandon every anchor to his identity, documents, contacts, money, and flee into uncertainty. That decision is either the razor edge of rational survival or the signature of a mind in crisis. Let us lock the timeline: beach holiday with friends at Golden Sands, an altercation, an ear injury, medical advice, avoid flying, take medication, reassess. Friends depart, Lars stays in Varna, night in a budget hotel, fear, calls to his mother, reports of agitation. Morning, airport visit, clinic check begins, sudden flight from the clinic, passport, wallet, phone left behind. CCTV, sprint across terminal, lot, fence, into fields. No confirmed sightings after that moment. Everything else is theory. It is easy, online, to mistake cases for content, to binge the unsettling and grade each twist for entertainment value. But a family doesn't get to turn this off. They live in a space where the phone could ring and everything changes or never does. So if you're going to discuss this case, discuss it like people are listening, because they might be. We can also ask what could minimize the chance of repeats. Travel medicine literacy, understanding when not to fly with ear injuries and what side effects to watch for matters. Crisis protocols at travel hubs, medical rooms that can quietly flag security for wellness checks without criminalizing distress can create safe pauses. Communication bridges. If a traveler expresses fear, there is value in slow, clear steps. Who do you think is after you? Can we call someone you trust? Would you like to wait with staff? None of this guarantees safety, but it bends probability toward better outcomes. The footage. That is the core. We like to think cameras mean clarity, that once an image exists, truth will follow. Here, the cameras tell us everything and nothing: a man running, the direction of the sun, the geometry of a fence. But the why, the most important word, remains invisible. It haunts because it is relatable. Who hasn't felt a surge of unexplained dread? Who hasn't misread a shadow as a figure? Or, Conversely, felt the hair rise on your neck because something was wrong, truly wrong, and you couldn't articulate it in time. So which theory fits the most facts with the fewest leaps? For my money, and you ray free to disagree, misadventure after acute fear fits best. Whether that fear was triggered by a real encounter or by an internal storm, the behavior is the same: flee now, think later. Once outside, a chain of small, bad choices in hot weather could turn survivable panic into fatal outcome. But fits best isn't the same as proven, and without new evidence remains, confirmed sightings, personal effects found beyond the airport corridor, this stays a model, not an answer. If you were in Varna in early July of 2014, or if you lived near the airport's perimeter and remember stranger asking for help, details matter. Checking old photos, emails, or travel journals sometimes shakes loose a clue. Small things age into big things in cases like this. For everyone else, travel with awareness, share itineraries, note how injuries and medications interact with flights. And if someone you love calls with fear, listen longer than feels comfortable. Beat. I wish this story had a neat ending. Real life rarely does. This has been Runway to Nowhere, the disappearance of Lars Mittank. Thank you for spending time with this story, and for treating it and the people inside it with care. Music holds, then fades.